Now, I spoke last week about tax and expenditure reform. Don't kid yourself that any government, state or federal, is keen on either. I mentioned the welfare bill, $196,000 million in 2020. I mentioned that you can't go to an accountant or a lawyer or a dentist or get your fence painted for nothing, but you can go to a doctor for nothing. Well, not really. The poor taxpayer has to pay. New Zealand have a Medicare co-payment. Tony Abbott talked about a Medicare co-payment. The media tore him apart. But Medicare in 2012 cost $19 billion. In 2022, $30 billion, $30,000 million. There's a New South Wales budget next week, but already we're seeing no end to spending promises, yet debt in New South Wales is forecast to rise beyond $120 billion in the next 4 years. Queensland government debt, over $100 billion. Victoria, out of control, over $200 billion. South Australia, $33 billion. And of course, Canberra, over $1 trillion. And yet not a word about cutting expenditure. Given how bad government is in Canberra and how much they get wrong, do we need 250,000 public servants? Compulsory superannuation was meant to reduce the welfare bill, take people off the aged pension. It's not happened. But the tax breaks for superannuation are expected to cost almost $90 billion over the next 4 years. Unpaid HECS debts are $96 billion. We subsidise foreign outfits who own wind farms to the tune of $3 billion a year. I could go on and on. Waste is everywhere. Well, waste is one part of the equation. Tax reform is the other. You might recall that last week I detailed the tax proposal that there be an expenditure tax on everything, only about 2%, every transaction, and you could abolish all taxes. All taxes. I'll be returning to that. But now there's talk in New South Wales of a land tax replacing stamp duty. This has everybody excited, and we're told that next week's New South Wales budget will begin to phase out stamp duty in New South Wales. Well, let's not get too excited, because the Premier has said, he can't go it alone, and phasing out stamp duty by allegedly introducing a land tax. I stress a land tax. I'll come to that in a minute. The New South Wales Premier said it would cost the state government billions of dollars in revenue, and he couldn't go it alone. He'd need to reach a formal agreement with the Commonwealth. I suspect the Labor opposition in New South Wales will have a field day with this. Stamp duty's been around since 1865. It averages about 4% of the purchase value of the property. The seller pays, which means many people in big houses avoid selling or downsizing because of the burden of stamp duty. No one denies that.